Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where time isn't measured by clocks or calendars, but by the very rhythms of nature itself. Imagine standing with the Native Americans on a crisp morning, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath your feet, the wind rustling through the trees, and the sunlight casting its golden rays over everything. It's a world where each day is a living experience, deeply connected to the land, the sky, and the seasons. There are no ticking watches here. Instead, time is felt through the changing of the seasons, the cycles of the moon, and the movements of the sun. But here's the thing. It's probably safe to say, you wouldn't survive in this world without learning to see time as something far beyond your own personal schedule. It's not about hours, minutes, or seconds. It's about the natural flow of life. There's a rhythm to everything around you, and by the end of tonight, you might find yourself wondering how we ever let go of that kind of connection. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to share where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. In the world of Native American tribes, timekeeping was not just about tracking the hours of the day or the months of the year. Instead, it was a much more intimate connection with the environment. Time was observed in the natural cycles of the moon, the movements of the stars, the blooming and withering of plants, and the migration patterns of animals. For these cultures, time was a living thing, a reflection of nature itself. The calendar wasn't marked by days or weeks, but by seasons and events, and these were understood in relation to the natural world. Imagine yourself in this world, standing at the edge of a forest, where everything around you, from the wind to the sky, speaks in rhythms you've learned to interpret. There are no ticking clocks, no digital reminders on a phone. Instead, everything around you gives you subtle cues: when to plant crops, when to hunt, when to gather herbs, and when to celebrate the arrival of the new moon. The beauty of this system is that it wasn't restrictive. It was freeing. Time flowed with the natural world, not against it. As you stand there, feeling the breeze on your face, you realize that time in this world doesn't constrain you. It connects you. Historians still argue whether this connection to the natural world allowed for a more harmonious life, or if it limited their progress compared to societies that embraced more structured, linear time. Some say that without a formal concept of time, these societies thrived by being attuned to their environment, while others argue it may have held them back from the advances made by other civilizations. Either way, their understanding of time was deeply different from what we know today. Now, picture this. The sun is just beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, golden shadows across the earth. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of drums, deep, resonant beats that echo across the land. These aren't just ceremonial sounds. They're the mark of another passage of time. The setting sun, the sound of the drums, the rustling of leaves. These are all signals that tell the tribe it's time to prepare for the evening. There's no digital clock telling you that it's 6 p.m. Instead, the rhythms of nature guide you through each moment. Time is felt deeply, and you start to notice how it syncs with every action around you. The first darkening of the sky signals a different rhythm for the community, one of winding down and preparing for the night. The tribe's sense of time is steeped in their connection to the land, their natural surroundings, As the sun fades and the stars begin to twinkle, you feel a sense of timelessness. There's no hurry, no sense of urgency to get from one moment to the next. The world here is slower, grounded in the natural world, a world where the sun and the stars are your only clocks. As you observe the shifting of the shadows, you realize that time doesn't only mark what's outside, it's also deeply internal. The elders of the tribe would have used the night to reflect, to tell stories of the past, to pass down wisdom about the cycles of nature and the transitions that would happen in the coming seasons. Stories were a way to keep track of time, to ensure that important events, the changing of seasons, migrations, victories, and struggles, were remembered. Time wasn't written down. It was remembered through stories, songs, and ceremonies, making it a shared experience rather than something individual or isolated. This connection between the cycles of nature and personal experience makes everything feel more fluid. Historians still debate how structured the concept of time was among Native American tribes. Some argue that while there were rituals and cycles, there was no formal method of tracking days or months, while others suggest that certain tribes had more sophisticated systems, marking the passing of seasons and moons as a form of calendar. Either way, the connection to the land remained a vital and central piece of their understanding of time. As you think about this, you feel the weight of time moving differently in this world without the constraints we put on it. There's no rushing here, no deadlines, no appointments. Life flows with the seasons, the moon, and the stars in a rhythm that feels almost intuitive. Standing beneath the evening sky, you feel as though you, too, are part of this flow, part of the natural passage of time. The world around you feels ancient, and yet somehow timeless. You stand by the fire, the crackling warmth of the flames bringing life to the night air. It's here, by the fire, that another layer of time unfolds. The flickering shadows cast by the flames dance on the faces of the tribe. Here, in the light of the fire, you see the elders gathered, their faces deeply lined with wisdom and experience. As they speak, their voices are steady and calm, weaving tales from the past, stories of ancestors, of great migrations, and of battles fought long ago. The stories, passed down from generation to generation, carry the weight of time itself. Each story is a way to mark the passage of time. The elders don't need a calendar to know when the seasons have changed or when a new year has begun. The signs are there in the stories they tell, the way they tell them. The tales of the first snowfall, the arrival of the migrating birds, the blooming of certain plants, all of these serve as markers of time, each one deeply embedded in the community's collective memory. In the flickering firelight, you begin to see how the concept of time is not linear, but cyclical. The seasons, the movements of animals, the planting and harvesting of crops, all of these repeat over and over, with each cycle becoming a part of the greater rhythm of life. Unlike the strict, ticking clocks that dominate modern life, the passage of time here is fluid and endless, woven into the very fabric of the community's daily existence. It's not something that can be measured by hours or minutes, but rather something that is felt, experienced, and lived. As the elders speak, you notice that the younger members of the tribe are listening intently, their faces illuminated by the fire's glow. They are absorbing the lessons of time, the stories that will one day become their own, to share. You realize that in this moment, Time is both individual and collective. Each person is living within their own moment, yet they are also part of something far larger, a cycle that connects all of them to the past, present, and future. Their role in the tribe's collective memory is written not in documents or clocks, but in the stories they will one day pass down themselves. Historians have long debated the role of oral traditions in the way Native American tribes kept time. Some scholars believe that these traditions were simply a way to recount history, while others argue that they were a deeper, spiritual connection to the passage of time itself. Either way, it's clear that these stories were not only used to pass on information, but to reinforce a connection to the land, the seasons, and the rhythms of nature. As the fire burns down and the night deepens, you realize that time, here, is far less rigid. There's no rush, no urgency. Instead, time moves with the flow of the world around you, in sync with the land, the sky, and the natural world. It's not something to be controlled, but something to be lived, experienced, and remembered. You're now walking through the dense forest, surrounded by towering trees whose trunks seem to stretch toward the heavens. The forest is a world unto itself. And here, time is measured in the growth of trees, the changes in the underbrush, and the patterns of the seasons. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. The ground beneath your feet is soft and slightly springy, as though the earth itself is alive, breathing in tandem with you. In this realm of the forest, the Native American method of tracking time becomes more apparent. The tribe marks the passing of time not with a rigid clock, but by the cycles of nature that they can see, touch, and feel. They observe the way the trees grow and shed their leaves, the way animals move through the forest at different times of the year, the changes in the weather, the flow of rivers, and the blooming of certain flowers all serve as markers of time, telling the people when to hunt, when to plant, and when to gather. You stop at a large tree, its bark rough beneath your fingertips. As you run your hand along the trunk, you notice the deep scars where branches once grew, now long gone. The tree's growth rings are visible along its bark, each ring a testament to the years that have passed. The elders of the tribe would have known exactly how many seasons had passed since a certain event occurred, simply by counting the growth rings of a tree. In this way, the forest itself holds the memory of time. As you continue walking, you come across a small clearing where a group of tribal members are gathering plants. Their movements are deliberate, each action part of a larger rhythm that's been practiced for generations. They know that certain plants bloom only at certain times of the year, and they know exactly when to harvest them for food or medicine. The rhythms of nature are written into their daily actions, so much so that they no longer think about it. They simply do it. To them, this way of marking time is natural, as vital as breathing. Here, in the forest, you begin to understand how time can be both cyclical and deeply tied to the natural world. The past isn't something that's just remembered. It's something that lives within the land itself, in the trees, in the earth, in the animals that move through it. Every change in the forest, every new growth, every movement of the wind is a reminder that time is constantly moving, constantly renewing itself. It's a delicate balance of memory and renewal, of knowing where you've been while still moving forward. Historians still argue whether this method of keeping time was purely functional or if it had deeper spiritual significance. Some suggest it was a deeply spiritual practice, with each seasonal change symbolizing renewal or rebirth. Others argue that the connection to nature was purely pragmatic, simply a way of surviving and thriving in a world that demanded constant awareness of the changing seasons. What is undeniable now, though, is that this method of tracking time was rooted in a profound connection to the natural world, something that modern society often seems to have lost. As you watch the tribal members gather the plants and work with the land, you realize that time in this world is not just a measure of hours or days. It's something far more personal, more connected to the earth and to the people who walk upon it. Here, time doesn't just pass. It's lived, breathed, and experienced in ways that modern society can hardly imagine. As you step away from the clearing, the world around you feels slower, more deliberate, and connected. You can almost hear the quiet hum of life as the breeze rustles through the trees and birds call out overhead. Your path leads you toward a nearby river, where the current flows lazily, winding through the landscape like a living thing, marking time with its rhythm. As you approach the water's edge, you notice the subtle changes in the river. The level of the water has risen slightly, indicating the arrival of spring floods, while the water's clarity suggests that the warm season is drawing near. In this moment, you realize how the river itself has played an integral part in the way the Native American tribes marked time. The river, with its unbroken flow, teaches them about patience and the steady passage of seasons. It's a living clock, one that doesn't need hands or a face to tell the time. It simply flows, its course unhurried, yet constantly moving. As the water laps against the banks, you begin to see how the tribe could rely on the river's behavior to predict the coming of certain events. For instance, the height of the river after the spring thaw would signal the time for planting crops. The tribes understood the river's cycle so well that they could predict when to plant, harvest, or even when to migrate. The water itself spoke to them, and they listened. Just as a tree's growth rings tell the tale of years gone by, the river's flow offers insight into the rhythms of nature, a silent but profound record of time. In the distance, you spot a canoe resting by the riverbank. The smooth wood and curved edges suggest it's been in use for many seasons. A group of tribal members are gathering around it, preparing for a journey downstream. As they load the canoe with baskets and supplies, you realize that this moment, though simple, is yet another way of measuring time. The journeys down the river are not taken on a whim. They follow a pattern known to the people, who have traveled the same route for countless generations. Each trip down the river is an action repeated through the ages, a part of a greater, unbroken timeline that spans beyond the living and into the spiritual. As the tribe members push off from the shore, you notice how the canoe glides effortlessly through the water, the steady paddling creating ripples that widen across the surface. There's no rush. The paddles dip in and out of the water in a synchronized rhythm, as though the canoe itself is part of a ritual that honors the flow of time. The river has witnessed countless journeys like this, and it will witness countless more. The tribe's understanding of time is intertwined with the water, constant, rhythmic, and ever-present. Historians still debate whether the river's role in marking time was purely practical, or if it carried deeper spiritual significance. Some suggest that the river was seen as a metaphor for life itself, an endless flow that cannot be stopped or controlled, only experienced. Others argue that it was a necessary tool for survival, a way to chart progress and movement through the landscape. Either way, the river was an undeniable part of the tribe's experience of time, an ever-present force that shaped their lives in ways we might never fully understand. As you watch the canoe disappear downstream, the river once again becomes a silent marker of time, reminding you that life is cyclical. In a world without clocks, nature's rhythms provided everything needed to survive, and everything needed to understand how time truly works out. As you stand by the river, watching the canoe disappear into the distance, the sound of water trickling becomes a soft, meditative rhythm. It's easy to get lost in the simplicity of it, to lose track of time altogether, just as the Native Americans did. The quiet of nature envelops you, and you feel the pulse of the earth beneath your feet. Yet, despite the peacefulness of the moment, you can't help but notice the ways in which the tribe's connection to time is so different from your own. You live in a world where time is measured by the ticking of a clock, by schedules, and by deadlines. But for them, time is something woven into the very fabric of nature. Their understanding of time is not something divided into hours and minutes. Instead, it is a seamless, flowing connection to the world around them. The seasons, the weather, the movements of the animals, all of these things mark time in a way that is intrinsic to their survival. In their world, time is not something to be controlled or measured, but something to be observed and respected. You walk further down the riverbank, feeling the weight of the soil beneath your boots. The earth here seems ancient, grounded in the slow passage of time. The ground is littered with fallen leaves and scattered branches, signs of the seasons that have passed and those that will come. The trees, with their tall trunks and thick canopies, stand like silent witnesses to the world's history, marking the cycles of life with their changing leaves. They live in harmony with the rhythms of the land, adapting and shifting as the seasons turn. Looking up, you can see the branches beginning to bud, signaling the start of a new season. The subtle shift in the air tells you that winter's grip is loosening. For the Native Americans, this would be a signal to prepare for planting. The earth is waking up, just as the people do after a long winter of quiet reflection. The cyclical nature of life is everywhere around you, from the river's flow to the budding trees, reminding you that time is not just about numbers and minutes. It's about patterns and cycles, about understanding when to act and when to wait. You watch as a group of women move past you, carrying baskets filled with the early blooms of spring. They are gathering plants and herbs from the river's edge, preparing for the coming season. Each step they take seems to be a deliberate part of the rhythm of life. They are moving in time with the world around them, their actions synchronized with the seasons and the land. The way they work with the earth, how they prepare for the future while respecting the past, speaks to a deep understanding of the natural world's cycles. As the women pass by, one of them stops and hands you a small, bright green sprig from a nearby bush. You're not sure what it is, but it seems to represent the delicate balance between nature and time, how one influences the other, and how they must be respected together. The sprig, though small, is a symbol of the season ahead, of the life to come, and of the lessons learned from the past. The women continue their journey, moving in a fluid, unhurried way that seems to defy the rush of the world. You realize that they, too, are living in tune with time, in a way that's foreign to you, in a world of constant movement and change. Their way of life offers a sense of stillness and continuity. They don't need clocks to measure their time because they are already in harmony with it. The seasons, the river, the trees, all of these are their clocks, marking the passage of life in ways that are deeper and more profound than any mechanical ticking. Historians still debate whether the Native Americans viewed time in a linear fashion or in cycles. Some suggest that their understanding of time was deeply spiritual, tied to the cycles of nature and the spiritual world. Others argue that it was a practical system of survival, one that relied on observing and understanding the natural world. Regardless of the interpretation, it is clear that their relationship with time was rooted in respect for the earth and its rhythms, offering a profound lesson in how we might view our own place within the world. As the women disappear from sight, you're left with the quiet stillness of the river, the soft murmur of nature's timekeeping. The world feels larger, more connected, and you begin to realize that, despite the differences between their way of life and your own, the flow of time is the same for everyone. The day starts to wane, and the soft golden light of the setting sun casts long shadows across the land. The rhythmic sounds of the river blend with the occasional call of a bird overhead. The warm hues of twilight lending a sense of serenity to the landscape. The cool evening air begins to shift, carrying the scents of the earth and the river. And you find yourself slowing your pace, soaking in the atmosphere of the moment. It's as though the world around you is slowing down, too, reflecting the natural rhythms that define the Native American understanding of time. As the sun dips lower, you pause at the edge of the river, watching the surface catch the last glints of sunlight, turning the water to liquid gold. The horizon before you stretches out, infinite and vast. It is at this very moment, standing on the bank, that you realize how much you've been immersed in their world, in the ebb and flow of nature's cycles. There is no rush, no sense of urgency in this moment, just a deep connection to the land, to the sky, to the world around you. In the distance, you see a group of men returning to camp. Their faces are weathered, their movements purposeful. They carry bundles of firewood, their arms strong from the labor. But their expressions are calm, unhurried. As they near the camp, you notice that they don't look at the clock for guidance. There is no pressure to be anywhere at any given time. Their actions are dictated by the natural rhythms. The day's work comes to an end as the sun sets, signaling that it's time to rest, time to eat, time to connect with their families. It's a concept that seems foreign to you. You've lived in a world where time is divided into segments, neatly categorized and divided into minutes and hours. In your world, there's always something to do, always somewhere to be. The Native Americans, on the other hand, are guided by the land, the sky, and the seasons. The very idea that they don't need clocks to tell time feels both simple and profound. As the men return to camp, a fire is started, and soon the aroma of roasting food fills the air. You sit down by the fire, and the warmth seeps into your bones, soothing the weariness of the journey. The fire crackles, and you are surrounded by the sounds of the night. Gentle laughter, soft conversations, the whispering wind, and the crackling flames. It is in this moment that you understand the simplicity of their existence. They are in tune with the world around them, living by the sun, by the moon, by the seasons. Their lives are not ruled by schedules, but by the natural order of the earth. The men and women sit together, sharing the day's catch. And you watch as they pass around bowls of food. The connection between them is palpable. There is no rush, no hurried conversation. Time is shared in a way that feels grounded and intimate, a part of the larger rhythm of life. It's a far cry from your own existence, where meals are often eaten in front of screens, and conversations are often interrupted by the ticking of clocks. Here, there is no interruption, just the natural ebb and flow of time. You can't help but notice how the moon begins to rise in the sky, casting a soft glow over the camp. The firelight flickers and dances, and the sky darkens, revealing a blanket of stars above. The constellations, which were once mysterious to you, now seem familiar and comforting. The Native Americans, you realize, have a deep connection to the sky, using the stars to navigate the vast wilderness. They don't need technology to guide them. They trust in the rhythms of nature, in the cycles of the seasons, and in the quiet wisdom of the stars. As the night deepens, the group begins to settle down, each person finding a place by the fire or in their tent. There's a quiet sense of contentment, a peace that comes from knowing that time, in this world, isn't something to be measured or controlled. It's something to be lived in harmony with. You feel your own sense of time slowing down, the stress and urgency of the outside world fading away. You realize that in this moment, in this place, time is simply something to be experienced, not controlled. Historians still debate how the Native Americans viewed time compared to European settlers. Some suggest that they had a much more fluid and organic understanding of time, while others argue that their connection to nature gave them a sense of balance and order that was far more efficient than any rigid system of timekeeping. Regardless of the exact details, it's clear that their way of living was grounded in the world around them, in a way that seems almost foreign in today's fast-paced world. As you lie down to rest, the sound of the crackling fire and the soft whispers of the night surround you. The stars above seem to wink at you, as if to remind you that time, in its purest form, is not about minutes and hours, but about the world around you, the connections you make, and the cycles of life that continue, as steady as the river's flow. As you lie there, enveloped by the stillness of the night, your thoughts drift to the passing days. You realize that in the world of the Native Americans, life is a seamless, flowing narrative. There's no disjointed sense of time, no rigid moments dictated by the hour hand. Instead, their lives seem to unfold naturally, guided by the world around them. The days are measured not by clocks, but by the sun's journey across the sky, by the changing seasons, and by the events of the natural world. The blooming of flowers, the migration of animals, the first snow of winter. The next morning breaks quietly, the sun's rays creeping over the horizon, casting a soft orange glow across the landscape. The birds begin to sing, their songs filling the air with a peaceful cadence, and the air is cool, but not unpleasant. You rise from your spot by the fire, stretching your limbs, and notice the ease with which everyone moves around. There is no rush, no hurry to start the day. The people move with a calm, unhurried rhythm, as though they are part of the natural flow of the world itself. You observe as the women gather around, preparing the morning meal with grace and simplicity. There's no frantic bustle, no fast food to be hurriedly consumed before moving on to the next task. The meal is simple but nourishing: corn, beans, and squash. ingredients that have been grown with care, each dish a reflection of the earth itself. The men, too, begin their day with quiet purpose. They check their tools, prepare for the day's hunt, and begin the tasks of the morning. Everything is done with intention, each action connected to the rhythm of the land. As you sit down to join them, you notice the communal nature of the meal. There's no sense of individual urgency, no clock ticking in the background. People eat when they are ready, not when a schedule demands it. There is a peacefulness to it, a mindfulness that's foreign in your fast-paced, clock-driven world. Even the children, with their innocent chatter, are part of the rhythm. There is no sense of hurry, no rush to get to the next thing. The world exists in the present moment, unfolding with ease. You're struck by the simplicity of it all. Here, in the quiet moments before the day fully begins, there's a sense of balance. The Native Americans seem to understand that time, in its truest form, is not something to be conquered. It is something to be lived in harmony with. As you watch the people go about their morning tasks, you realize that they are not measuring the hours, they are simply living them, flowing with the natural rhythms that guide their existence. This peaceful morning ritual seems to stand in stark contrast to the frantic pace of modern life, where every second is accounted for, and every task is bound by a schedule. The concept of waking up when the body feels rested, of eating when the body is hungry, and of working when the need arises. All of these are things that seem so simple, yet so profound in their naturalness. The day continues at a slow, deliberate pace. The heat of the sun rises as the day stretches on, but the rhythm of life remains the same, unhurried, unbound by time. As the men head out on their hunt, the women continue with their daily chores, and the children run and play with the same carefree energy that defines their youth. There is a harmony to it all, a sense of unity between the people and the land, between the sky, the river, and the earth beneath their feet. You walk with one of the women as she gathers wild herbs from the fields, and you are struck by her sense of purpose. She doesn't look at a watch or count the minutes. She simply moves through the land, gathering what is needed and offering gratitude to the earth for providing. It's a way of living that is so deeply attuned to the world around her that it seems almost effortless. As the afternoon fades, you watch the men return, their faces weathered from the day's work, but their spirits high. They've brought in a fresh catch, and the communal fire is lit once again. The work of the day is done, and the people gather together to share their meal, to tell stories, and to rest. The evening draws near, and once again, the sky transforms with the colors of the setting sun, signaling the end of another day. But there's no rush, no countdown to bedtime. The day simply fades into the night, and the cycle begins again. Historians still argue whether Native Americans had a different understanding of time or whether they simply didn't need it in the same way that modern societies do. Some suggest that they had an innate understanding of the rhythms of nature, while others believe that their way of life was dictated by necessity, not a deliberate choice to live outside of the constraints of clock time. Regardless of the answer, what is clear is that their existence was one of deep connection to the natural world, a connection that allowed them to live in harmony with the land, guided not by the ticking of clocks, but by the eternal rhythms of the earth itself. As you drift off to sleep, the sound of the crackling fire and the gentle murmur of the people around you provide a peaceful lullaby. you are reminded of how different this world feels. How, in its simplicity, it offers a sense of peace that is hard to come by in the modern world. There are no alarms to wake you, no schedules to follow, just the quiet rhythm of life, unfolding as it always has, without the need for any artificial measure of time. The sun rises once again, casting its golden light over the peaceful village. The morning mist hangs low over the fields, and you feel a sense of quiet anticipation as the day begins. The rhythmic hum of the natural world fills the air. Birds chirp, insects buzz, and the rustle of leaves in the breeze provides a soft background symphony. It's as if the world itself is waking up, gently nudging you into the flow of the day. Here, in this timeless place, there's no jarring alarm to disturb your slumber, no sudden rush to start the day. You join the villagers as they gather by the river, preparing for another day of work. They move with purpose, but there is no sense of urgency. Everything is done at its own pace, according to the natural rhythm of the world around them. The men begin their work, their hands skilled in the tasks of hunting and fishing, while the women collect firewood, weave baskets, and tend to the children. The air is filled with the smell of fresh earth and water, and the cool breeze on your face is a gentle reminder that time here is measured by the movements of nature, not the ticking of a clock. You notice that no one checks a watch or consults any kind of timepiece. There's no need. The people here simply know when it's time to begin, when it's time to rest, and when it's time to come together for the communal meals that mark the passing of the day. The entire rhythm of their existence is dictated by the rising and setting of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the changing seasons. It's a lifestyle so attuned to the earth that it feels almost sacred. As the day progresses, you notice that even the children follow the same natural cadence. They play and run, their laughter ringing through the air like the sound of the wind. There's no rigid schedule for playtime or study. Instead, they play freely, their activities shaped by the needs of the moment and the natural curiosity that guides them. The notion of time as a constant force, always looming and pushing them forward, is absent from their world. The sun reaches its peak, and the villagers gather for the midday meal. The food is simple but nourishing, a reflection of the balance that exists between the people and the land. Corn, beans, and squash, carefully grown and tended, are served alongside freshly caught fish. There's no sense of rushing to finish the meal and move on to the next task. Instead, the villagers eat together, enjoying the company of one another, as if time itself has slowed down to allow for connection. It's a far cry from the rushed lunches in the modern world, where time feels like an enemy to be beaten. As the afternoon stretches on, you find yourself lost in the slow flow of life around you. There's a certain peace in knowing that there's no schedule to adhere to, no clock to race against. You realize that, in this world, the sense of time is shaped not by a rigid system, but by the needs of the people and the land. You begin to appreciate the beauty of the natural rhythms that guide their lives. And the idea of a clock-driven existence feels increasingly foreign to you. Here, the passing of time is marked not by hours and minutes, but by the cycles of nature, the rise and fall of the sun, the changing of the seasons, and the quiet ebb and flow of the river. You sit for a moment beside the river, watching as the current moves steadily forward. There's no rush, no urgency. The water flows at its own pace, unhurried, undisturbed by the passage of time. You realize that the Native Americans' understanding of time is far more fluid than anything you've ever known. Time, for them, is not a constant pressure, but a gentle guide, a series of natural moments that flow in harmony with the world around them. Historians still debate whether Native American cultures were consciously rejecting the concept of linear time, or whether they simply never had a need for it. Some suggest that their understanding of time was cyclical, tied to the rhythms of nature, while others believe that their perception of time was based on practicality and the immediate needs of survival. What is clear, however, is that their lack of reliance on artificial time markers allowed them to live in a deeper connection with the earth, to experience each moment fully without the constant ticking of a clock. As you stand up, ready to rejoin the villagers, you feel a sense of calm wash over you. Time, in this world, seems to breathe with you. There's no ticking, no pressure, just a gentle unfolding of the day, a rhythm that exists beyond the confines of any schedule. The thought of a clock seems distant and almost irrelevant in the face of such a peaceful existence. The afternoon sun starts to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the village. The villagers, having completed their daily tasks, gather in the central area for a quiet moment of rest. There's no rush to finish or move on to the next task, just a simple enjoyment of the present moment. You notice how deeply attuned they are to the rhythm of the world around them. Nothing is forced, nothing is hurried. There's a quiet grace to everything, from the children playing by the river to the elders sitting in the shade, exchanging stories. As the light softens, the temperature cools, and a deep sense of peace settles over the land. The villagers have no need to glance at the sky for guidance by now. They know it's nearly time for the evening meal. They don't need a clock to tell them what time it is. They simply feel it, instinctively aware of the natural rhythms that guide their daily existence. You, too, feel the shift as the day eases into evening. The air has a different quality now, crisp and fresh, filled with the smells of earth and wood. It's as if the entire world is slowing down with you, welcoming the quiet of the evening hours. The work is done. The day's demands have been met, and now it's time to come together and share a meal, to relax and be present with one another. The evening meal is a communal affair, a time for storytelling and bonding. The food is simple, yet nourishing. Again, it's the fruits of the earth, carefully harvested and prepared. The people sit together on the ground, around a fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flame. The meal is shared, but it's not just the food that nourishes, it's the connection between people. The stories are told, laughter rings through the air, and there's no rush to finish. There's no clock to remind them that the day is almost over. They simply are, enjoying the time they have together. As the fire burns lower, the night sky deepens into a velvety expanse of stars. There's no artificial light to drown out the sky's brilliance. It's all natural, all real. You can hear the crickets and the rustle of leaves in the gentle evening breeze. The constellations above, familiar yet ancient, seem to stand still in the sky, as if they, too, are part of the same rhythm of life that the villagers follow. The absence of artificial time markers allows for something rare in the modern world: freedom. There's no clock ticking away, no pressure to move on to the next task. The villagers are in tune with nature, and their relationship to time is not one of constraint, but one of harmony. You find yourself breathing in the cool air, feeling the rhythm of the world around you. and it's as if you've been swept into this timeless flow. Time, in its usual form, seems irrelevant here. It's not measured by minutes and hours, but by the natural flow of the world. Historians still debate whether Native American cultures lived by a concept of time, or if they simply lived in harmony with the cycles of nature. Some suggest that their way of life allowed them to experience time in a more fluid, organic way, more in tune with their environment than the rigid, linear time of modern societies. Others argue that Native Americans, like any other culture, were bound by the constraints of time, but their understanding of it was simply more flexible, rooted in their connection to nature rather than the ticking of a clock. As you sit around the fire, listening to the stories and watching the flames dance in the night, you can't help but feel a deep sense of peace. There's no rush here, no pressure to hurry or to meet deadlines. Time moves differently in this world, and you realize that it's not something that controls you, it's something you move with, like the rhythm of the seasons or the cycles of the moon. The clock, once so dominant in your life, is nowhere to be found, and in its absence, you feel freer than you ever have before. The fire burns down to embers, and the village quiets as the night deepens. The soft murmur of voices, the occasional crackle from the fire, and the rustling of the wind in the trees create a lullaby of sounds that surround you. The sky above is full of stars, and in the absence of city lights, it's easy to see the vastness of the universe. It's as if the night itself is embracing you, wrapping you in its cool, quiet arms. Quiet. You notice the elders, their faces weathered by time, sitting back against the trunks of ancient trees, gazing up at the sky with a contemplative look. The young ones, too, seem mesmerized by the stars above. It's a peaceful moment, one that feels timeless. You can almost hear the elders' voices, telling the stories of the ancestors, of the way the stars once guided their journeys. You feel a connection to them, as though the generations before you are still here, watching and guiding from the night sky. The rhythmic sound of the crickets, the distant calls of night birds, and the gentle rustling of the leaves are the soundtrack of this simple, beautiful night. The moon, now high in the sky, casts a soft glow on everything below. The villagers don't need to consult a clock or calendar. They know exactly where they are in the cycles of the year. They live by the seasons, by the changes in the natural world, and by the phases of the moon. The night passes slowly, with no rush to end it. You realize that in this world, time isn't something you chase. It's something you move through, like the gentle flow of a river. There are no alarms to wake you, no appointments to keep. Instead, the night is a time to rest, to reflect, and to listen to the stories of those who have lived before you. The only urgency is the desire to be present in the moment. As you lie back on the soft earth, the sounds of the night wrapping around you, you realize how connected you are to the land. The earth beneath you, the trees around you, and the stars above all speak to a deeper understanding of time. A time that isn't confined to the ticking of a clock, but flows with the natural rhythm of the world. The village, the people, and the land are all part of the same timeless cycle, and you, too, are a part of it. Historians still debate the importance of astronomy in Native American cultures. While it's clear that the stars played an integral role in navigation and storytelling, some argue that their understanding of time wasn't based solely on the stars or the moon, but on the cycles of nature itself. Others suggest that the celestial bodies were used as markers to track time. But the ultimate focus was always on the rhythm of the seasons, the movement of animals, and the growth of plants. As the fire flickers out, and the village falls into a peaceful sleep, you begin to understand that the way the Native Americans kept time wasn't just about tracking hours or minutes. It was about living in harmony with the world around them, attuned to the natural rhythms that governed their existence. There was no need for mechanical clocks, no need to hurry. Time, for them, was simply the flow of life, a beautiful, natural rhythm that connected them to the earth and to each other. The soft sounds of the night, the rustling of leaves, and the gentle breathing of the villagers around you lull you into a peaceful slumber. You realize that in this quiet, timeless world, you found a new way of being, one that doesn't rely on the ticking of the clock, but on the steady pulse of nature itself. Native Americans had a deeply rooted understanding of time, relying on natural phenomena rather than mechanical clocks. One of the most significant tools for their timekeeping was the moon, which played an integral role in their seasonal cycles and activities. Each phase of the moon brought different tasks, from hunting to planting and harvesting. They observed the skies closely, noting the changes in the moon's light as a way to track the passing months. The stars, too, were a crucial guide, not just for navigation, but also for ceremonial purposes, connecting people to the cycles of nature in a way that felt spiritual and practical. In many indigenous cultures, the movements of the stars and planets were seen as signs and messages. For instance, the North Star was a guiding point, marking direction, but also guiding people through significant life events. These celestial events were often passed down through generations via storytelling, where the stars weren't just glowing lights. They were ancestors watching over and protecting. Historians still debate whether indigenous peoples had a deeper spiritual connection to these celestial bodies, or whether their understanding of time was purely pragmatic. Some scholars argue that their sophisticated knowledge of the stars was integral to their way of life, while others suggest that their survival depended on their ability to adapt to the natural world, rather than relying on exact measurements of time. As you continue to imagine the rhythm of life among Native American communities, one must also consider the crucial role played by the changing seasons. Seasons were not just markers of time, but deep cultural guides that influenced everything from clothing and food to ceremonies and rituals. Each season had its own distinct tasks and responsibilities. For example, the winter months brought about a time for rest, reflection, and maintenance of tools, as well as preparing for the coming year's challenges. The spring, on the other hand, was a time of renewal, planting crops, renewing ties with neighboring tribes, and preparing for the hunting season. These seasonal shifts didn't just dictate the activities, they were also embedded in the spiritual and cultural life. The seasonal changes were celebrated through rituals, dances, and festivals, all of which were designed to align the community's life with the natural world. For instance, the harvest season, with its bountiful fruits and grains, was celebrated in ceremonies of thanksgiving to the earth, with dances and feasts that acknowledged the interconnectedness between people and nature. The fall might mark a time of reflection, but it was also a time of gathering, where families came together to collect food for the long winter. Historians still debate the extent to which these seasonal patterns shaped the development of Native American culture. Some argue that their understanding of time and the seasons was far more sophisticated than we often give credit, suggesting they might have had calendars that synchronized with lunar cycles. Others believe that their relationship with time was more fluid, less about tracking dates and more about connecting to the ebb and flow of nature itself. Either way, one thing is clear. The seasons shape not only their survival, but also their identity, deeply linking them to the land and its natural rhythms. As the days drag on, the wind becomes a constant companion, sometimes soft, sometimes violent, but always present. The sails flap and creak in the breeze, and you can't help but think of the men below deck, feeling the sway of the ship beneath their feet, desperately trying to maintain some form of stability. The constant rocking is enough to make even the most seasoned sailors uneasy, but you've learned to deal with it. The once hopeful glow of discovery fades, leaving a creeping sense of dread. The crew, which at first was so full of optimism and curiosity, is now quiet, their faces drawn and tired. Their enthusiasm for the journey has been replaced with exhaustion, hunger, and fear. Each day feels like a slow battle against the vast, uncaring ocean. You walk the deck, trying to keep the crew's spirits up, offering words of encouragement. But even your own resolve is beginning to falter. There's no denying it. The sea has a way of wearing down even the strongest of men. Your own body is beginning to feel the effects of the lack of fresh food, the endless salty air, and the strain of the journey. Your clothes are stained and torn from the constant exposure to the elements, your hands rough and calloused from the work, and your skin is sunburned and peeling. The ship is your home, but it's a prison of sorts, and each creak of the wood seems to echo the frustration that builds in your chest. You remind yourself, though, of the purpose behind it all, the promise of discovery, of finding new lands, new possibilities. That was always the goal, wasn't it? But as the days stretch into weeks and the sight of land remains a distant dream, you start to question whether the goal is worth the cost. Historians still debate the psychological toll of such long voyages. Some suggest that the isolation and monotony were a greater threat than the physical challenges, while others argue that the lure of fame and fortune kept explorers motivated. Either way, it's clear that survival, mental and physical, is an accomplishment in itself. The hope for land, for civilization, keeps you going, but it's starting to feel like it may never come. You can't help but imagine the land you left behind, the bustling markets, the familiar faces of your loved ones, the smell of fresh bread. It's hard to remember a time when life felt easier, when the dangers of the sea were just stories told in taverns. But that was before the sea became your whole world, before every wave and every gust of wind became a potential threat. The ocean doesn't care about your hopes and dreams. It is a force of nature, indifferent to your struggle. And yet, the crew keeps going. They continue to work, to sail, to search, driven by something intangible. Perhaps the same hope that has kept explorers like you moving forward throughout history. You find yourself clinging to that hope as well, no matter how faint it seems. It's the only thing that makes the endless horizon worth staring at. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the day arrives when the endless horizon is broken. At first, it's a mere speck, barely visible against the blue expanse. But then, as the ship sails closer, the shape of land becomes more distinct. Rugged coastline, jagged cliffs, and patches of green. The sight is so surreal, so unimaginable after so much time at sea, that you can hardly believe your eyes. The crew erupts in a mix of disbelief, excitement, and a deep sense of relief, their tired faces lighting up with the glow of hope that only land can bring. The ship sails closer, the sound of the waves crashing against the hull now mixing with the cheering of the men. You stand at the edge of the deck, staring ahead, your heart pounding in your chest. After so many days, so many weeks of uncertainty and despair, the land before you feels like a dream come true. You've made it, against all odds. You have survived. As the ship drops anchor and the men scramble to prepare the dinghies for landing, a strange silence falls over the crew. It's not the silence of defeat, but the calm that comes with reaching a goal, the quiet before the storm of discovery. You watch as the first few men wade through the shallow waters and set foot on the land, their steps tentative, unsure. The ground beneath their feet is solid. No more rocking, no more waves. It is a small but profound moment. Historians often argue about the emotional toll these first moments of discovery had on explorers. Some say it was a sense of relief, while others suggest a deep, humbling awe at the vastness of what they had accomplished. For you, it's a mixture of both. You feel a quiet joy, yes, but also a deep respect for the power of the ocean and the land that now stands before you. After so much uncertainty, so many dangers, you are finally standing at the edge of the unknown. The crew gathers their belongings, ready to explore, ready to set foot on this new land. But you pause. For a brief moment, you look out at the sea, the very sea that tested you, that tried to break you, and you feel a sense of gratitude. For the first time in weeks, you feel at peace. The journey, the hardship, the struggle, it has all led to this moment. You look around, seeing the crew move with new energy, their exhaustion replaced by the thrill of discovery. And, just like that, the long, exhausting voyage is behind you. In the quiet of the moment, you realize something profound. It wasn't just the land you were searching for. It was the belief that no matter the odds, no matter the hardships, there is always something worth striving for. Historians still debate what drove these early explorers. Was it the promise of riches and glory, or the desire to chart the unknown, whatever the case? One thing is certain: the sense of accomplishment after months of adversity, of pushing through every challenge the sea threw at them, was a feeling unlike any other, and for you, standing on the cusp of the unknown, it's a feeling you'll never forget.